Okay, hi, here I am again. So I've been having a big, I think I'm going to use two decks. Also, because I haven't even pulled it out yet, I'm also feeling the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Bodierski. So I think even though they're not really on the surface, they don't seem all that compatible. I reckon they probably are. So I've got the tarot deck, and I'm going to go ahead and pull all of the cards from the tarot deck, and then we're going to look at them. So we're going to start with the first position here, which is removing the head. Okay, so when we talk about removing the head, we're talking about what is it that we need to sever attachment to. So it's using the symbol of severing the head, severing attachment to the body by literally cutting the head off. We think of the head as being kind of where the thoughts and the ego reside. So what we are severing attachment to is represented this week by the Queen of Pentacles. And if you look at this lovely little Queen of Pentacles, she is she's beautiful, and she is clinging to an idea. Interestingly, it's very much like what I was talking about in the video beforehand. She's clinging to this idea of all of her goodness and goodies, but all of her goodness and goodies is wrapped up in a concept. In this case, it's all of her stuff. It's all of her things. It's, you know, it is pentacles, so it is worldly goods. It's worldly possessions, having enough. The idea that maybe I need to cling to what I have physically. It could be money. It could be stuff. But it's the idea that we need to cling to something physical, money, property, things, items, etc., in order to feel whole, okay? In order to, and I feel too with this particular Queen of Pentacles, this is focusing around an idea of finding our goodness through, and sorry to say, I mean, it's a reading for the tarot community, but finding our goodness through all of our stuff. Okay, so finding all of our sense of identity, our sense of goodness, through clinging to things that represent spirituality in our lives, that are physical. You know, in my case, it would be all of my tarot decks, all of my crystal collection, my sacred statues and books. What else? I mean, there's so many things. But this concept that it's the things, or the attachment to the things, or the way in which we use those things in our lives that makes, maybe that's better, the way that we use those things that makes us more spiritual. You know, the way that I do my thing, the way I do my stuff makes me a more spiritual human being somehow. Okay. So that is what we are severing an attachment to, right? We don't need those things in order to have a sense of our own innate goodness, right? We don't need to identify with stuff. We don't need to identify with the ideas that we place around that stuff and how we use it and how we wield it as being something that in any way defines our goodness, okay? Then we have position 2, which is represented by the Kartika. Right, what do we need to use? Okay, so what are we using to sever the head? The Dakinis use a Kartika. What do we need to use in order to sever our attachment? This is fascinating. It's the Emperor. So how are we going to use the Emperor? I think, I've been meditating on this a little bit. I think what this is representing is the ability to enact our own power, right? If this Queen of Pentacles, if her shadow is feeling disempowered, like look how she clings. Her little head and face, she looks like she might not be, maybe she's not as nurturing as she thinks she is. There's a little bit of victimization in there, right? Just a teeny bit maybe. But there's nothing about this Emperor that is that way. This Emperor is much more humble. You know, maybe this is a humble, empowered emperor, right? So I think it's more about recognizing that sense of authority within ourselves, to say enough is enough, right? Pound that staff against the ground and say, okay, enough is enough. I'm done being victimized by these concepts, by these ideas, by the things that they represent. I reclaim my own ability to have power over my own life and my own choices. Yep, so in doing that, immediately, something here begins to shift. So then position 3, excuse me, allergy season in Missouri is brutal. Position 3, so who or what are the gods and demons who need to be fed through compassionate offering? A way that we do this. A god demon is anything that vexes us, right? Remembering too that the minute we knock a god off of a pedestal, we tend to demote it to the other end of the spectrum and create it as a demon, okay? What is it that we are dehumanizing by placing it on a pedestal or knocking it off of a pedestal? What is it that we are creating? You know, we can create tarot decks or hold up tarot decks and bits and pieces and items and things that we own as gods, right? We can do that with money. We can do that with power. You know, whatever that god demon is, you know, it's a source of separation from our ability to know deeply what our own goodness is, right? Because we don't, our goodness does not require things, stuff, evidence, etc. It just simply is, okay? It just simply is. So let's see, what are the god demons? Oh, look at that. So we're naming the god demons. That's interesting. So it's the 6 of Pentacles, which is about generosity. Yeah. I'm going to say, that's interesting. I feel like, yeah, because we're dealing in Pentacles and so forth. I feel like it's the idea that we tend to conflate generosity and charity with giving stuff or giving money. And my gut sense here is that we are looking at ways of relieving ourselves of having to do that. It's not about stuff, right? Think about it this way too. When you're in a position of being somebody who has money, and you can say, I've given XYZ to charity, or I've given this much money to charity, or I've been generous with my donations, you know, or stuff, gift giving, whatever it may be, it creates a god demon. Hear me out. Because it creates this sense that through being charitable, you have some power and control, right? You have some ability to have power over others, right? We've got, you know, we've got these little ghosties. I see they're all giving to one another, but there's often a sense, certainly in the original version of this card, in the Rider-Waite-Smith, there's a sense that somebody has money and somebody's in need of money, and one person is worthy of it and the other one may or may not be. I think that's a pile of shit. You know, that is a god demon that we create in our society, and we do it through so many different inequities. But I think, you know, letting go of this idea of people who are who are able to be charitable are good, and people who are in need of charity are a little bit less than us. I think that's what we're looking at here. That through offering and receiving, there is a hierarchy or an order of goodness and of deservingness and of anything else we attach to it. finally, number 4 is the skull cup itself. Okay, so 4 is the part where we chop up, we take the Troma comes out, she chops your head off, takes the top of your skull, you know, like this, puts it on a tripod, and then throws the chunks of your body that she's cutting up into there, cooks it up, and it becomes this beautiful nectar, okay? So it's the process of transformation. So having severed this attachment to the idea here, how do we purify and transform this quality in ourselves into a more compassionate offering? So how do we take this idea of, you know, those who give and those who receive or have to be given to? See how I phrase that? How do we transform this concept? Because right now, certainly in the US, I think probably we'd start to see it everywhere. Any place that's heavily Western influenced, you know, any place that's capitalistic, we're going to find that to be a true thing, okay? So how do we transform that idea? Because until we do, we're not going to have a more equal society. So number 8, oh, sorry, number 8, the card. The card is the 8 of Swords. We have to transform our thinking about it. That's amazing. So essentially what we're being told here is that the way that we do this is simple and is complex as changing the prison of the mind. We have to be willing to take off the blindfold and stop acting like we don't know what's happening. We have to see what's around us. You know, what are these thoughts and ideas through which we have entrapped ourselves? And then how do we disassemble that? Right? We have the ability to think our way through it. We just have to take the initiative. Have to take the initiative. Okay, so that is the way in which we can purify and transform. We have to change our thinking on the matter. 5 is over here. It's the Kongling. So this is a Kongling, and it is not made of bone. This one is made of resin. But they would originally be made of part of a human femur, and then you blow obviously through here, and you know, this calls the let's see, yeah, the taller side is calling in, you know, the god beings. The shorter side is calling in the demons. Okay, so gods and demons alike. Notice how they're not separate, are they? They're part of the same thing. Okay, so in calling in those god demons, oh yes, we're here at number 5. And calling in those, I get so excited. We calling in those god demons. Okay, what's that most effective way to do it? Okay, in a Chod practice, it's a Kongling here. Boop. Oh, look at that. It's the Empress. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So I remembered the first 2 cards that I pulled. I mean, I literally just shuffled, pulled the cards, laid them out, looked at them for a second, and flipped them over. I forgot we had the Empress here. So that's fascinating. So when we think about just the way that works, when we think about how we're going to transform, you know, how are we going to call it in? We're going to call it in with abundance and fertility. Hey, come here. Look at, you know, we're transforming this idea of not having enough or of needing to cling to what we have, right? And, you know, I get to be the one who's generous and nurturing and feeds others, right? With this Queen of Pentacles, right? Naming the god demons. Look at how those two relate, you know, this idea. So how best do you feed it? You bring in your Empress, because she is fecund and she's fertile and she's abundant and she has everything. So we recognize our own abundance. Okay, we recognize that we have so much to offer that is physical, that is emotional, that is deeply nurturing, that is actually, you know, profoundly part of this archetype. When you contrast, I feel like I've always felt that there's something with the Queen of Pentacles and the Empress. There's a similarity there for me. But when we think about it, you know, this is the Queen of Pentacles. No matter who she is not quite as, is never quite as amazingly secure. And just, you know, the Empress is almost like the earth itself, you know, the ability to give endlessly without losing anything, and to continue to be able to produce what is needed in order to carry on and move forward, right? So it's, if we're disassembling this disempowerment of self and others, right, through ideas around, you know, unhelpful ideas around, oh, the sun's come out, around giving, you know, have not, clinging to things and stuff and ideas that are outmoded. You know, the Empress is saying you have the ability to continue to reproduce whatever it is that you need. You're abundant. You know, there's abundance here. Come and take what's yours. Come take what's needed. There will always be enough. There will always be more. So we can call in, you know, these god demons who need to cling to having more, having less. You know, the person in the position of being charitable is always wanting to have more. You know, they give away because, I mean, this is archetypally, this may not relate to you, but, you know, they give away because they feel better. It makes them feel like a good person instead of a greedy one, right? But the truth is, there's always plenty. There's always enough. All right. And then number 6, we having fed, right? Having fed the god demon, you know, the idea that's the concept that kind of vexes us and creates the situation where we have something we have to cut off. You know, there comes an ally in this process. There becomes an ally. So we want to recognize, who do these two become when the ally, you know, when they've been fed properly, they have everything they need, all concepts of better or less good, etc. are removed, right? What do we have left? Wow. Look at how that works out. Wow. So we have the Lovers. Isn't that beautiful? So here we have a sense where everyone is on equal footing, and the only thing that's coming together here is, you know, the ability to share, to make a choice to share equally, to make the choice to offer compassionately and receive compassionately, and to remove those barriers. And it feels like more of a shared energy necessarily here than actually a shared thing. Look too at how that ally went from being a 6 of Pentacles, wow, to a 6, to the Lovers as a 6. So from a minor arcana to a major arcana. I'm always amazed when I do when I work with this spread, at the way in which, you know, when I'm using tarot, the ways in which that comes together. And then 7, 7, what is it that's being integrated into wholeness? Ha ha ha. You know, we have the 2 of Wands with a little ghosty in his crystal ball. I feel like what we have here then, okay, if we're applying this again to the tarot community in general, you know, we have a new way of approaching and holding space for our spiritual lives. You know, we're integrating a new perspective, a new way of looking at things in our spiritual lives, that is more like spare and more open, more spacious, and absolutely probably more in harmony with the reality of spirit. You know, where things are equal. There's space, you know, 2 can be like a portal. It's a portal to a new reality, a new way of viewing things, seeing things, a new way forward. That of course hasn't yet come to fruition, but as we integrate that, it begins to shift us in a new direction. So just to recap, right? What is it that we need to sever? Is that what it is? Yeah, what is it that we're attached to, that we're severing? We're severing the need to cling. We're clinging, what do we cling to? We cling to money, we cling to resources, we cling to filling our bowl, our spiritual bowl, our spiritual lives with stuff and things that don't necessarily benefit us. You know, I'm going to say it's, you know, money, stuff, things. I think too, it's also just the ways in our lives in general, in which as a capitalistic society, we cling to our stuff. And we do that. We cling to stuff, we cling to money, and we do it out of fear. We do it because we fear we won't have enough. We fear that we're not good enough, that we don't, you know, all of that. All of the not enoughness, okay? The way in which we sever our attachment to it is by stepping into our own authority with the Emperor, saying enough is enough. You have the power to make choices and decisions. You're going to exercise those and use them wisely. 3, as we name who are the gods and demons, it is this idea of who is in a position of giving and who's in a position of receiving. Do I have enough? Do I give enough? Am I enough? It's also placing on a pedestal this idea that those who give and share and offer are somehow inherently better than the person receiving. So it's getting rid of that hierarchy and that duality in that particular engagement and relationship, okay? Yeah. So then what is it that we're placing in the skull cup to be transformed? It's an outmoded way of thinking. It's a mental prison, a prison of thought that we have inflicted on ourselves blindly for far too long, and which we need to face. And it's not going to be as hard to pull out of it as we might think. But first we have to be willing to take the blindfold off and really see reality as it is, so that we can move forward. And then 5, how do we call in, how do we draw these, you know, gods, demons in to be fed? We invoke the Empress. And the Empress is full of abundance. She's fertile. If she doesn't have it, she grows it. You know, it's like the earth itself. You know, the goodness of who and what we are comes from our relationship with the earth, with our reality as inherently spiritual, good, beautiful beings. And so by invoking the Empress, we draw in these gods, demons with so much to give, so much to offer, that we don't have any attachment to it, because it's all, you know, it can all be given. It can all be given. It's also the lure of invoking our endless spiritual, physical abundance, right? And the connection between the two, I think. You know, come be fed, because there will always be enough. Always enough. And then 6, how do we recognize the ally? So instead of there being a hierarchy where one person gives and the other receives, and there's a sense that someone should, or, you know, should is involved. Instead, what we find is we find a mutuality. We find a common ground. We find the ability to transform that energy into meeting as equals. There's a choice to meet as equals, with love, with compassion, with respect, and no need for there to be attachment to one side or the other, with respect to stuff and money and resources and all of that. Okay. And then finally, number 7, what is it we're reintegrating? What needs to be reintegrated? It's this new perspective that we're going to hold for ourselves, that's inclusive in our spirituality. You know, our spiritual view becomes more inclusive and more balanced, and leaves us in a position to move forward from that place in our practice. Yeah. Okay, folks, so that's that. Yeah, I'm always really deeply humbled Whew, deeply humbled by the ways in which these spreads work themselves out, and they relate to one another. All right, have a beautiful full moon, and I will see you again next week. Bye.